Electroheads, I'm Tish and welcome back to our YouTube channel. In today's video we're going to be taking a closer look at a pretty prestigious all-electric SUV, the BMW iX3, and I'm super excited about this. We're going to be going over the styling, the range, charging and just checking out how good this car actually is. If you're looking forward to it then please make sure you keep watching, but before that please make sure you're subscribed to the Electroheads YouTube channel, and after you've done that head over to our Instagram and follow us there as well. The iX3 must receive some kind of award for having the fastest facelift ever. Before this was even landed in showrooms, there was already a facelift in the works. The car that I have here is the pre-facelift, and it came in the option of two different specifications. You had a Premier and a Premier Pro Edition. Now, not a lot has changed with the facelift. They've kind of gotten rid of some of the blue accents and the headlights have changed slightly. But overall, it's pretty much the same car. But it comes in a more familiar specification. It's now the M Sport and the M Sport Pro. And I think this matches in with BMW's ethos around this car. It's familiar for drivers, it's a familiar kind of term that they already know about, so I definitely welcome the change. And all of those changes are aesthetic. The headlights are slightly slimmer, while the kidney grills and the air intakes have grown in size. And some of the blue details you'll notice on our car have been removed. The important bit. There's an 80 kilowatt-hour battery pack that should give a range of 285 miles. That's according to the latest WLTP testing procedure. That's a bit more than key alternatives such as the Audi e-tron and the Mercedes-Benz EQC, but a bit less than the Jaguar I-Pace. However, other good news is that it comes in cheaper than all but the Audi. However, spec the Audi to match the BMW and it can't be beaten in price. Unlike some other manufacturers like Volkswagen and Audi and Skoda, the BMW iX3 wasn't actually originally designed to be an electric car. It's essentially the same skeleton that they use for the petrol, diesel and plug-in hybrid, but it's now a fully electric car. And that comes with its pros and cons. The pros are that it looks really conventionally like a standard BMW, and that helps out people that are struggling of thinking to go electric. It's kind of got a much more familiar feel about it. However, it does come with some negatives. Because it uses the standard X3 skeleton, that means that the batteries have had to be put under the floor, meaning there's no option to have this car as an off-roader or to have it as a four-wheel drive. Now that's going to put off some people, but BMW said that people don't want an all-electric off-roader. And I guess I'd care to agree with them. I don't know. Let me know what you think. Who wants to see my impression of the BMW iX3?
Damn.
No, but seriously, are we all over the grills by now? I know it was a huge thing when the BMWs first come out, but now we've all kind of gotten used to them and I don't really think they're that bad.
I like it.
A lot like the Volvo XC40 Recharge, I hope you don't want your iX3 in any fancy colours, because BMW offer a whopping 4, and that consists of black, grey, white and blue. But at least the blue is quite a fancy bright blue. But come on BMW, we know the colours that you can put on your M Sport cars, and we want to see some of those on our electric cars. And along the same lines, the alloy wheels only come in the option of one design, but at least they're quite aesthetically pleasing, especially when you've got them matched in with the black paintwork. I really quite like them. Of course, because this is an electric car, they're quite flat, and this is to reduce drag and to also increase your range, which differ from these gloss black wheels on the Premier Edition to an equally stylish two-tone colour. The M Sport gets 19 inches, whereas the M Sport Pro increases this to 20s. The iX3's boot isn't one of the biggest that you'll find on the market, but to be honest, I think that it's going to be more than enough space for most families. Plus, you get an electric tailgate as standard on the M Sport and the M Sport Pro. Inside here there's 510 litres, which is actually 60 more than you'll find in the plug-in hybrid. Loading space is also really practical. You've got this nice square wide opening and you've got a flush boot floor. So really it's going to be easy to lift things in and out. You do lose a little bit of underfloor storage over the petrol and diesel models, but there's still enough space under there to fit your charging cables. Despite the fact that the big battery has in effect been shoehorned under the floor of the BMW iX3, rear space is just as good as in the regular X3. And that means that two tall people can sit quite comfortably in the back of the car with legroom and headroom to spare. Even if you add a middle rear passenger into the equation, things are still agreeable for all concerned, although you will still have more room to lounge in the Jaguar I-Pace. The outer seats can be reclined to give a more laid-back seating position, a feature that isn't available in the iX3's direct rivals. Whether you go for the M Sport or the M Sport Pro model, you get loads of standard equipment, something that really griped me with the Skoda Enyaq. In fact, if you spec'd up the Skoda Enyaq to be the same as the BMW iX3, I bet they're not that far away in price. In the standard M Sport model, you get things like Bluetooth, Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, tri-zone air conditioning, you get a panoramic opening sunroof, LED headlights, automatic lights and wipers, adaptive cruise control. If you go for the Sport Plus model, you get things like your gesture control, which to me I feel is a little bit gimmicky. You get an upgraded Harman Kardon sound system, keyless entry and start, and something that I think is well worth upgrading, you also get your assisted parking pack, which means that the car will practically park itself. If you drive into a tight space, you can tell it to drive back out the same way. Things like this I think are super helpful. In fact, you don't really need to add on any specification apart from something like a tow bar. Everything else is included, which I think is a huge plus. One thing I will say is it doesn't feel particularly special inside here. Everything is exactly the same as you'll find in the other X3s, which is great if you want familiarity, but there's nothing special about it that makes it scream that this is an EV. You've got little flashes of blue, which I really love on, of course, the start-stop button, and you've got the iX3 along here, and also when you open the door, I absolutely love this. You've got a little X here to tell you that this is the iX3. However, it does just feel like the standard model. Things like the steering wheel aren't particularly fancy. It would be nice to have something in here that felt just a little bit futuristic, but at least everything's really easy to use. You still get all the really nice buttons that you'll find in the standard BMWs, and you do have the dial down here, which you can of course control your infotainment system whilst you're on the go, meaning that you don't have to prod around with the screen. You can't really complain about quality either. Everything feels really well put together. This is super nice soft leather on top of here. You do have kind of a scratchy bit of plastic, but it's right back there and it's not going to bother you at all. There is some piano black used, which is not my favourite, and I've had this car a couple of days and there's already fingerprints and dust all over it. But to be honest, it's hard to avoid piano black in the car industry nowadays. But everything else is really well screwed together. Even the screen up here in previous models has been a little bit flimsy, but this is really well screwed together and I don't have any issues with the quality. Described by BMW as the 5th generation eDrive system, the BMW iX3 gets 285 brake horsepower, paired together with 295 pound-feet of torque driving the rear wheels through a single-speed gearbox. It's clear that the iX3 hasn't been built predominantly with speed in mind. It's more about being an all-round comfortable family car. That being said, the 0 to 37 time is quite impressive at 3.7 seconds, enough to throw you back in your seat. However, the 0 to 62 time is not quite as impressive. It rises to 6.8 seconds once you kind of get a bit more speed and of course a little bit more drag as well. In fact, BMW's X3 plug-in hybrid will actually do it in 0.7 seconds quicker. There are 3 driving modes available, all of which will be very familiar for BMW drivers. You've got an Eco Pro, a Comfort mode and a Sport mode. Popping it into your Eco Pro will reduce your consumables and give you the best possible range out of your battery. If you pop it into Comfort, it will soften the suspension and it will give you a much more settled ride for day-to-day driving. If you pop it into Sport, it stiffens the suspension and gives you more feel through the steering wheel, giving you a much more sporty feel. Now, as much as this steering becomes precise and enjoyable, the ride is just a little bit too harsh for my personal preference. And for day-to-day driving, I'd definitely be having it in comfort. The iX3 should be compatible with most UK charging stations, and it will take up to 150 kilowatts. So if you find a charging station like here at GridServe, you can get from 0 to 80% in just 34 minutes, or you can add as much as 60 miles of range in just 10 minutes. Charging from less powerful outlets, such as an at-home wallbox charger or a 3-pin plug, will take longer. BMW reckons a full charge from your at-home wallbox from empty will take around 12 hours. This will cost you around £13 per charge, which is a fair bit less than the equivalent diesel or petrol cost. The BMW is fitted with a very clever predictive regenerative braking system. Now, essentially what it does is it predicts your journey and it decides whether it wants to turn up the braking or turn down the braking, depending on what's coming up. So if I'm coming up to a junction or a roundabout, it will turn the braking up, meaning that when I come off my accelerator, it'll almost bring me to a complete halt. However, when the car knows that I'm out on the motorway or a dual carriageway, it will know that I don't want such a harsh braking system, so it will turn that level down, which I think really helps for those people that don't particularly like regenerative braking, as it's a lot easier to live with. The iX3 comes fitted with adaptive suspension as standard, and that means that it's really comfortable out on the road. Not quite as pillowy comfortable as something like the Mercedes EQC, but it's definitely going to trump the Volkswagen ID3 and 4. That familiar feeling that the iX3 gives you from the exterior and the interior is actually carried across to the drive. Don't get me wrong, ICE cars don't perform the same as electric, they have a lot of differences. But by BMW choosing to make this a rear-wheel drive car and mounting the batteries in the back, opposed to a dual motor car, 4-wheel drive, with the batteries placed all the way across the vehicle, it means that it actually performs a lot like some of BMW's rear-wheel drive performance cars, and that's definitely a good thing. The BMW iX3 has actually really surprised me. On paper, it looked like a little bit of a half-hearted effort by BMW, but after spending time with it, I realised that this is a great option for somebody that's looking for a prestige electric car, but doesn't want to move too far away from the conventional. Let me know what you think of the BMW iX3 in the comments below. If you've enjoyed this video, please go ahead and give it a massive thumbs up. And if you want to see more videos like this from me and the rest of the Electroheads team, then please make sure you're subscribed. Until next time, bye!